Hey guys, if there's anyone on, just say hello, give us a shout out, let me know where you are in the world, where you're watching from. I'm just going to give it a minute and allow a couple of viewers to come on before I start the video. Hey Kay, hey Redmar, hey David. Just going to give it another minute. We listen to Oka in the background. Punchy, hey brother. Hey Heidi. Punchy, hope you're well, bro. Redma has no audio. Can anyone else hear me out there? Punchy, can you hear me? Can anyone else hear me out there? I've just taken the headphones out. I'm just on my laptop, so I don't know. Sometimes I have trouble with my laptop. Hi, Diane. I'm just waiting for a response. If anyone's getting audio, if someone could just let me know. I might have to transfer to my phone. Yep. Diane can hear me. Botsy, you can hear me, bro? Punchy, can you hear me? Hey, Kylie. Yeah, you can hear me. All right. Well, I'll get started. So, tonight's topic I wanted to talk about, I've been watching a little bit of the news recently as I'm moving around from place to place, and it really just cements for me how these things are done, how we, I don't need these anymore. You know, how media can be used to manipulate the mind, the human psyche, and coerce us or lead us to believe or accept things that may not necessarily be true. In some cases, they may be. But I want to talk about how it's done. My opinion, anyway. So the title is Media Control and Media Mind Control, and the definition of terrorism I want to get into as well. Thanks, Botsy. Awesome. So everyone's got audio. So I guess I'll start. First thing I want to start with is the definition of terrorism. Now I'm using this book here. This is Webster's Third New International Dictionary for schools, libraries, courts, homes and offices. So terrorism. I just have to find it. These are big pages. Give me a second. All right, I found it. Terrorism. Now, whatever we've been led to believe that terrorism actually means, well, this is the definition. Whatever you think it means, let me clear things up. So the definition of terrorism. Number one, the systematic use of terror as a means of coercion. In brackets, the opening stage of a well-planned campaign of political, and then it has a little dash there. And every time it has a little dash in the library, it's where you put in the word that you're looking up. So what have we got? The opening stage of a well-planned campaign of political terrorism. And that's by Heinz Ulan. And number two, an atmosphere of threat or violence. In brackets, study the effects on children of terrorism in TV shows. So they're talking about using terrorism politically, and they're talking about the effects of it on children in TV shows. Now, why would that be important? The effects of it in TV shows, because it affects the human psyche. Anytime we hear the word terrorism, or it's told to us on TV, we get an automatic reaction, we get a fear response, and what that does is it almost naturally we listen and agree to what we're hearing, and we just accept that, and basically accept whatever's being told to us in the name of such a word as terrorism. Terrorist, an advocate or practitioner of terror as a means of coercion. Number 2, one who panics or causes anxiety. So a terrorist can be one who panics or causes anxiety. Now that leaves a very broad, very broad, I would say almost anyone, according to the definition of a terrorist, I would say almost anyone on the planet could be labelled a terrorist, by the means that, by definition, one who panics or causes anxiety. So even using the words terrorist in media, they may be using these words in the sense that people are panicked or showing anxiety in certain situations, and they might be labelled terrorists. But that could go for anybody, which is really interesting. Again, it's all about the words and the meaning of words, and this is where we find the meaning of words in dictionaries. Dusty, all right, mate. So Dusty's having a bit of a bath. Hey, Alan. Hey, Shannon. So TV shows, how do we use media? How do we use news? How do we use TV shows? TV shows in particular, I want to use as an example. So we have our favorite TV show, we have our favorite characters. Our favorite characters, they dress a certain way, they speak a certain way, they look a certain way. And these TV shows could be something such as Neighbours, could be something such as the news or politics. We're conditioned to accept a certain look. Some people may disregard what I say, the information that I share, because of the way I look, because I have funny hair sometimes, or my tattoos. People may disregard the information, and by doing that, you're basically blocking yourself from knowing anything, and you're just accepting what you're being told based on what you're seeing with your eyes. If you see someone in a suit, dressed up with a tie, and they can speak seemingly intellectually and seemingly for what might appear to be in your best interests, and we accept these because they're in a suit and they're smiling and they're laughing, and we feel intelligent because we can accept what they say. And TV shows like Neighbours, again, I'll go back to that. We have our favourite characters. They dress a certain way, they speak a certain way, they act in a certain way within their communities. They have certain communal guidelines, so to speak. What they say is right and wrong, and a lot of us take from what we see from other people as a moral compass. So when we're watching a lot of TV shows, this is where we're getting our subconsciously we're picking up and we're learning how to act and how to respond, and we're also learning in certain TV shows and movies, there's always a perpetrator or someone that's doing the wrong thing, and they're always dressed in a certain manner, or they might look a bit different. They might have funny hair like me. They might not be consistent with the mainstream ideal of what a person should look like. So automatically we label that, and we disregard that as negative information or disinformation or something that is not true, simply because somebody else has portrayed it to be that way, or simply because of how it looks or appears to us at a first glance. So we need to be really mindful about the information that we take in, and we need to not just accept information because of how it, because of who's saying it, and that includes myself. I don't expect anybody to believe anything that I say. I would hope that every single person that ever listens to me would listen to what I say, and they would make their own mind up about it. They would make their own decisions. They would think about it. They would analyze it logically, rationally, emotionally, and they would then make their own decision and come to their own understanding of the information that's being shared, not just blindly accepting anything anyone says, including myself. And then you have keywords, especially things like the news, things that we're watching daily, and you have keywords like terrorism or terrorist, which we know the definitions because I've just read them out. And this just continues to activate the fear response within the brain, in the human psyche, which causes the body to, it's fight or flight. So we either shut down and we want to stay in our house because we're in fear of what might happen if we go outside, or we're in fear of, in some instances, people are in fear of our own government, of our own authorities, and that's not what they're here for. They're here to protect and uphold the right. You know, the motto of the Victoria Police is to uphold the right. Now, if they're there to uphold the right, if that is the motto, I would, in this day and age, I'd be questioning, what right is that? Are they upholding the right of the human being, or are they upholding the right wing of Parliament? What are they upholding the right of? Because in my opinion and in my experience, they're not upholding the right of the sovereign individual person. So, you know, we have these words. What is it that they're upholding? It's supposed to be the right of the individual, the human being, the sovereign being. But it seems to be slipping away from that. And not in all cases, but in some cases. For instance, you know, I was watching the sad thing that happened over in Perth in Western Australia with the murder-suicide that's been labelled a murder-suicide. And I watched a couple of things on it. I read some stuff on it, and it was really, I mean, for me, just to spend 5 or 10 minutes even reading that, I had a lot of questions in my mind, and I saw that on the media they reported that there was no suspects or no continuing investigation, and you know, if that was me and my family, and there was no witnesses and there was no no one left alive, if my whole family was wiped out, I would want to know who did it. And I would want a full investigation. I would want people screaming. I would want people to want answers. You know, this is people, we need answers. And if we're paying our police forces and they're not investigating such a crime that has been committed against children, an entire family, and I don't know the facts because I wasn't there, but I think if we're paying an authority to protect us, then they should be investigating every single part of that thing, and they shouldn't be closing the investigation. There should be suspects. Like, what are we paying them for if we're not paying them to investigate the most atrocious crime we've seen in Australia in a long time? Like, this is children, So these are just questions that I have in my mind. And then I saw another post today, and this was from someone in the US who went and spoke to the media because he was arrested and put in jail for 5 months for doing Facebook posts questioning the morality of the police force because of the police brutality that's happening over there. And he was arrested and put in jail for this. And what sort of democracy, what kind of place are we living in when the people that are paid to protect us are actually locking us up for questioning? Now, if you have any leader in power, any governance whatsoever, then every single person of that country has the right to question that authority. That is absolutely, and that is the duty of the people of the land, is to question the authority and to question what goes on and to make known if we're not happy with something. That is our duty. It's not just something that we do because we enjoy it. Personally, I'm frightened. Often I get frightened, because I don't like talking about this stuff, but no one's doing it, or people are doing it, but it's not comfortable to talk about. But one of the four fundamental freedoms of human beings, I think it was Roosevelt who wrote them. One of the four fundamental freedoms is the freedom to live without fear, and that means without fear. There's no other. There's nothing else to it. It's the freedom to live without fear. And that means from government, that means from people, that means from any form of authority, that means from anything. It encompasses everything. Your entire life, you have the freedom to live without fear. And this is what, we go out and we're afraid to be ourselves because we might get, I don't even know, it's just this fear mentality that we have, partly due to the media and partly due to, I guess everyone's different, so different circumstances, but that's one of our freedoms anyway. So basically it takes me to my next point. Let me have a read. Hang on a second. And then it brings me to we have, what else I notice when I'm watching the news is that they put out these stories, these tragic stories that are tragic. People are being harmed in the most violent ways, and they put the stories out, which brings it into our homes, into our minds. It brings it to our attention. And then in the fine print, if it's written, and then in the fine print when they're doing it on the TV, they say, and we're looking at changing the legislation because of this. And it seems that every time a human being somewhere on the planet or in the country does an act against another human being, it seems that it's now protocol to use that act or that whatever's occurred as a catalyst for removing the rights of every other Australian or every other person around the world when we've committed no crime, we've done nothing wrong. Why is it that our rights are being infringed upon for someone else committing a crime somewhere on the other side of the country or someone over the other side of the world? Why is it that every time something tragic happens, that it seems to impact on the entire population by way of removal of our rights? I don't understand. If they're there to uphold the right, then why are they removing the right? They should be dealing with the crime, following through with the crime that's actually happened, and dealing with that in a judicial manner. That's the correct protocol. It's not to remove the right of every other sovereign in the country. That is not the protocol. That's not how the law works. That's not how it's meant to work. So, and that's the question I put to everyone. Should the entire country, should we all be infringed upon? Should our rights be removed for the acts of the very few, the very, very few, that is always going to happen because, it happens. But should we all have our rights removed because of these actions that are happening on the other side of the country, on the other side of the world? Are they going to try and bring in new gun laws because of what happened in Western Australia? So are they not going to investigate anymore? Are they just going to change the legislation with gun laws? Are they going to try and take more guns from Australians? Are they going to try and remove whatever we have left. You know, they're increasing the police force dramatically. It's all over the news, and they're removing the weapons, or not weapons, I shouldn't say weapons. They're removing the arms from the population, or they want to. Well, that's probably where they're going with the change of legislation anyway. And they've already done it once before after Port Arthur. So they're systematically, incrementally removing any form of protection or self-defense that the individual or the sovereign Australian or wherever you're from may have. They're increasing their own power, they're increasing their own weapons, they're increasing their own numbers and removing ours. So I would be very cautious, and I would be mindful, and I'd be thinking about this when I'm making comments and speaking to people about these sorts of issues. You know, it's not just let's all live in love and peace and let's get rid of all the guns like they're trying to do in America, or let's bring in new laws. It's not about that. It's about the people's rights and our ability to exercise those rights and not have them infringed upon, and also not to be completely bombarded with new laws and more police and more of this. And you know, now they're bringing in these cameras so that they can look into your car and send you a fine if you're on your phone. Like, if you're on your phone, you're not harming anyone. You haven't broken any laws. You may commit an offence in regard to their legalism or their corporate offence act, whatever it even is. It's not a law. If you're on the phone and you're driving and you don't crash into someone or you don't hurt anyone, then you've done nothing wrong. You can't be charged because you might run into someone down the road. If this is the way that we are going to make legislation and make law by way of it may be unsafe or it may harm someone, then eventually you're not going to be able to do anything. None of us, we won't even be allowed to leave our house in case our neighbour's laying on our front lawn and we trip over them or we step on them. Like, the amount of possibilities that could happen in any given moment to any person is infinite. So to bring in laws to preventative laws, or preventative legislation, I should say, they're not laws. Preventative legislation is a big problem, because you can make a legislative idea to prevent anything. Anything is preventable, but is it going to happen? Probably not. And if it does happen, then you deal with it. Then you go to the judicial system. That's when it's dealt with, not before. This is like that Minority Report where they're locking people up for, they haven't done anything. They might have thought about it, but they haven't committed an act. So according to criminal law, if the actus reus isn't accompanied by the mens rea, or the mens rea isn't accompanied by the actus reus, there's no crime. And the actus reus is the act of committing the crime. That is the act. And the mens rea is the mental knowledge, or the knowing that you're committing a crime. If you haven't done the act, there's no crime. So we can't continue to make legislative rules based on something that may happen in the future, that hasn't happened yet, but it may happen. But we're going to send out fines if you're on your phone, or if you go on 10 k's over limit. What we're going to do is we're going to send you out a fine you're going to get 30 days later. How is that safe for anyone? How is that preventing the road toll? How is that reducing the road toll by receiving an infringement notice? And they're telling you that they're infringing on your rights. This is the funniest part. It's an infringement notice because they're infringing on your right. They're telling you in bold letters. How funny is that? You know, it's no secret. Well, it's a secret in plain sight. It's all secrets in plain sight. And once we understand the words and the meanings, then there's no more secret. you know. It's all about conditioning. It's all about conditioning the mind to accept blindly, you know, because of how we look and how we sound, and that's what it's about. It's all conditioning. It's all in the mind. Again, don't believe anything I tell you. Listen to it and analyze it and be analytical, logical, rational, and use your emotional capability and think about what I'm saying. Don't believe what I'm saying just because I'm saying it, and it's easy just to believe what we're told. Research, look into it, spend 5 minutes. You know, we have Google, which is one of the best tools we've got, or get yourself a law dictionary, and it will give you the answers to everything you need to know. And you'll be quite surprised at the answers you get. I'm just reading at the moment to see if there's any more. And then I'm going to go through and just see if there's any questions. Voting. I want to talk quickly about voting. Now, what happens when we vote, right? When we vote for any party, what we are doing is we are consenting to their policies and we are agreeing to their policies. That's what we're doing when we vote for somebody. Now, if any one of those policies that any party makes does not resonate with you, then I would suggest that you look into A, all their other policies, and B, don't vote. If none of the parties are offering this country what it needs, then don't vote for any of them. Because by voting, we are agreeing and we are giving them permission to act on our behalf for the rules and legislations and taxes that we don't even agree with. Just by voting, we are simply giving them permission to do that. So if you don't agree with anything and there's no one that has anything to offer you that you agree with, then don't vote. Because why would we agree to something that we don't want? It was funny, I was listening to the drum again. By chance, it was on. It's the second time I've seen it, and the last time I saw it, it was that Peter, I can't remember his surname, who basically said the government, you know, the tax office isn't part of the government and it's not enforced. It's not legally government. I'm trying to remember now what he said. Basically, in essence, it was that the tax office is not a government entity, which it isn't, and you can look that up yourself. That's easy to do a Google search. And that taxes are voluntary, and that the only reason that we're paying them is because the Australians agree to pay them. Now, I heard the same guy on the drum tonight, and he said that when put to a vote, the Australian people it was either A, they could get a tax cut, or B, they could send all their money or all that money off to the Federal Reserve to pay off the national debt instead of getting a tax cut. And he said that majority of Australians, or I think it was 53 or 57% of Australians, voted to pay off the national debt to the Federal Private Reserve Bank instead of having a tax cut. Well, no one asked me, and if someone asked me, I certainly wouldn't be sending any money over to the Federal Reserve Bank because A, it's a corporation, it's not a government, and B, that's our money. Why are we sending our labour in the form of money to a foreign corporation? Is it because we are a foreign corporation? Well, we know we are. We know the Commonwealth of Australia corporation is a corporation. You know, there's two Commonwealths of Australia. There's the Commonwealth for the people, by the people, and there's the Commonwealth of Australia, which has an ABN, which is registered in, I think it's Washington. It's registered on the US Stock Exchange. You know, it's not what we think it is. And the only way we know what it is by looking into it. I'll put some links on about this, and I'll be sharing. And a lot of people have been commenting on the posts I've been doing, and they're putting links on there and putting amazing information on there. And I highly recommend that people go through and look at this information, especially ones to do with taxation and government, because that is information that is so valuable that it breaks the veil like that. There's no question, because it's in front of you and you do it yourself. You can look these things up yourself in 5 minutes and you'll get the answers. This isn't there's no conspiracy. There's no, there's no grey area. It's black and white, and it's all there. It's all there for those who wish to seek and to know the truth. And that's what it comes down to. And if we're not seeking and knowing the truth, then we're living a lie. And that's it. You can't have both. And keep in mind, the only thing that keeps any form of any form of administrators, any form of company, any form of business, any form of authority, any form of governance, the only thing that keeps that in place is the people. Because without the people, there's no market. If the people aren't buying what they're being sold, then there's no business left, because that business is now bankrupt. It's gone. But as long as we keep buying whatever it is that we're being sold, even if we're not getting value for money, even if we're not getting what we're told we're getting, if we keep buying it, then we are going to keep building that company. That's how business works. I'm not a financier. I don't know much about business. I don't know much about tax. I don't know much about law. I'm just learning, and I'm sharing what I know. And that's all I can do, is just share what I learn and share what is true and what is right, and whatever that means, Toby. I'm just going to go through the comments here. Every time a government disarms the people, all hell breaks loose. Take Russia, China, Cambodia, etc., etc. That's what it's about. Police are getting more arms while we are left defenseless. That's right. Not only are we left defenseless, they're going to try and take more arms off us. They're going to try and use instances like Western Australia as a means to change gun legislation. Because this guy on a farm happened to own 3 long arms. Because he lives on a farm, of course he's going to own long arms. He's got produce, he's got stock. Who isn't going to own long? Majority of farmers own long arms. That's what keeps, the only thing that keeps the people of Australia in any form of power, or any form of sovereignty, I should say, not power, but any form that keeps our sovereignty, is the fact that we can protect ourselves if need be. Self-defense, not violence, not anger, not rage. It's self-defense, and we have the right to keep these firearms for self-defense, and for hunting, to feed ourselves. We have a right to feed ourselves. If we live out in the bush, of course we can have firearms, because we're out in the bush. You don't know what's coming. You don't know if you need to get food. Not everyone lives in a city, and the people that live in cities and live in suburbia may not have a full understanding of what it's like to live in the country. But it doesn't work out well for any body of people when a government tries to remove their arms. Never has, never will. Anyway, I wasn't planning to do a video tonight. I hope everyone's got something out of it. I'm going to go through Adi, karate chop them with our voices. Yeah, voice. The human voice, the voice that you have, is one of the most powerful tools in the world. This is how it works, right? You have a thought. The thought converts, we analyze the thought, and we get an idea, and that idea comes out our mouth. Now, what happens when it comes out our mouth? It becomes real. It gets spoken, and then it turns into contracts, it turns into agreements, it turns into expansion, ideas turn into, they materialize. So every time we speak, that comes from an idea. We speak, those words are so powerful, they affect our entire environment. Not only the vibration that comes out of our mouth and the sound, but the meaning of the words and what they represent. So be mindful of what we say, be mindful of how we use our words. But they are the most powerful tool that we have. That and the internet, this is such a powerful tool to have the internet. We're so blessed to even have this available to us at this time. How long that lasts. We need to use our voice. We need to speak. We need to speak our ideas. We need to speak what comes up here. And if we don't speak it, it stays in there, and we get anxiety, we get frustrated, we get angry because we're not speaking what we're supposed to be saying. So for me, I mention this a lot. I don't like doing videos like these topics. I don't like talking out against anybody, And the thing I want to make clear is if I ever speak about government or authority, I don't want people to think that that is something separate from us, because it's not. They are us. We are them. We are the authorities. We are the government. It is our brothers, our sisters, our fathers, our mothers, our cousins. We all make up the body of government that is Australia. And we're all just learning from each other as we go. This is how it works. So we need to use our voices, and we need to speak to our brothers and our fathers and our sisters and our mothers. And we need to share what we know. That's why words are so powerful. But the government is not separate. The politicians, they're not separate. We allow them to act, and we allow them to legislate, because we don't argue and we just accept. So we are just as responsible as anybody else. There's no one person that's more responsible or culpable than anybody else. It is a collective mind, and it is a collective action, and we must all be held accountable. There's no pointing the finger at anyone. It's all of us, and we must all take responsibility for the way things are right now, and we must all act to change that. That's what we have to do, because it's all of our responsibility. I think that's about it for there. Hey, Jono. I'll just go through and go through the comments now. Botsy, I am relaxed actually. I mean, sometimes I feel relaxed, but I also feel a lot of energy. I feel a lot of angst, a lot of the time, because of all the stuff that I'm seeing and all the stuff that's coming through, and it's really hard to, I can't even hold it in, because this is why I do these videos, because I have to speak about it. It's like I don't have a choice. Literally, if I hold it in, I can't sleep. I can't think about anything. I can't enjoy my surf, because I'm thinking about what I need to be doing. So I am relaxed, but I also feel a lot of, fear and pressure and anxiety and all these things, and uncertainty. I don't know what's happening. I don't know where things are going to go. I don't know how things are going to end up for us as a people, and that concerns me greatly. I worry about these things. Hey, Renee. Hey, Sam. Hey, Marie. Hey, Alan. Hey, Shannon. Sergei. Per. Hello. Dustin. Hello. Josh. Hey. Stephen. Thanks for all your comments, Stephen. Love the stuff you're putting on, bro. Please keep posting those videos. Hey Joey. Wood Holly, Amber Spirit, hello. Leighton, hey brother. Hey Adi. Rochelle, Katrina Lee, Michael Gallagher. So for those who just joined, I probably won't get a chance to go back and watch the start of this video, the entire video, because we all have very busy lives. So I just want to go over the terrorism part again. I just want to clear this. I want this to be very clear in people's minds. What is terrorism? And again, this is by the definition. This isn't by the media. This is by Webster's Third New International Dictionary, which is used for schools, libraries, courts, homes, and offices. Quite a large book. The definition of terrorism, that word that strikes fear into the hearts and minds of most people in a Western civilization. So terrorism. Number one, the systematic use of terror as a means of coercion, in brackets, the opening stage of a well-planned campaign of political, and then it has a little dash, which in every other meaning, that little dash is where you insert the word that is being described. So let's just do that. The systematic use of terror as a means of coercion, the opening stage of a well-planned campaign of political terrorism. And that's by Heinz Ulan. And number two, an atmosphere of threat or violence. And then in brackets, study the effects on children of the, again, it's that symbol. So study the effects of children of terrorism in TV shows, close brackets. Now, why is that in there? Why do they want to study the effects of terrorism on children in TV shows? Why do they even want to know the effects of that? Because that is a way of controlling the mind. That is a way of controlling the fear response in the human being. And if we have a fear response every time we watch the news or something, then we don't want to go outside. Everyone wants to stay inside. No one goes and talks. No one goes out in their communities, has meaningful relationships with other people, not just sexual, but just communicating with people on a human level, you know. Yeah, so that's terrorists. Sorry, terrorism. That's terrorism. And terrorists, this one's really interesting. I'm going to go to number two of terrorist. So there's two definitions here. Terrorist, and this could mean anybody in the world could be labeled a terrorist by definition. A terrorist, one who panics or causes anxiety. That's it. That is the second meaning of terrorist. One who panics or causes anxiety. I would think in all rationality that by that definition, any human being on the face of the planet could be labeled a terrorist. And that wouldn't be incorrect. That would be the correct use of terminology by definition. Therefore, any media can use the term terrorist when describing anybody, whether it be from another country, another religion, another race, another planet, another community. And that would not be lawfully, or by definition, that would not be incorrect if that person is experiencing any anxiety or one who panics. And for the first definition of terrorist, an advocate or practitioner of terror as a means of coercion. So two very interesting definitions there, in my opinion. something to think about anyway. I didn't even realise that's what terrorist meant until I just read that then. I was interested in looking at terrorism, but yeah, that's a really interesting definition there. So anybody, including me, including you, anyone who panics or experiences anxiety could be labelled a terrorist, and that would not be incorrect by definition. Yeah, I read that one from Toby. Diane, did you meet up with Steve at Kofac? Oh yeah, I meant to do a video on that. I did meet up with Steve from Kofac, and he's still in process of finalising the party's registration. So for me, I'm not joining anything until it is a registered party, because I don't want to stop my ability of starting or joining another party, especially if it hasn't even gone through or been accepted yet by the Australian Electoral Commission, because there's some issues there, and I think Steve is handling that or dealing with that in the High Court, is what I'm told, or putting an application into the High Court, and that's pretty much all I know about it. So I won't be joining any party or anything, especially if it's not registered. I don't want to, put myself, remove myself from possibilities elsewhere. But yeah, it was an interesting time. We spent a couple of days, well, basically a full day, sort of hanging out and talking, and I believe that we both have the same intentions and the same end goals, and we both want to see what is best for. We both want to see and bring to fruition what is best for this country and the people in it. So whether we do it together or do it separately, I'm not sure. Yeah, I from what I heard from him, his policies and the way basically that the structure is set up for that party is that any member of the party can put up whatever it is they want to see brought into legislation. They can put that up, it gets voted on by everybody, and then majority rules. So it's set up basically, well, I'm told it's set up basically how a real government should be operating, and that's, the laws come up from the people. Everything what the people want comes up to the top, and that's, we vote on what we want. We dictate what is best for our country. The people do that, and they put that up. So, yeah, from what I've heard from Steve, and if what he says is true, then I think it's a really good party, and they have a good system set up there. But again, it's not registered at the moment, and I wouldn't be signing up to something that's not registered, because that restricts my movement and restricts my ability to join or start something else. But if and when that comes to fruition, I'll be very interested, and I'll be going and seeing Steve again and sharing more about that. Yeah. Hey Leah, hey Talopa, hey Mark, Jenny, hello, Hardy, beautiful point, brother. I'm not sure which one that was referring to. Michael Davis, hello, bro. Sophia, Sonia, hello, Kevin, Stephen, the government classes a sovereign as a terrorist. Yeah, well, that's interesting, because in that same article that I was reading, about the guy in America who got locked up by the FBI. He had his house raided at whatever time of the morning by men in guns and masks, being the FBI that locked him up for 5 months because he did some Facebook posts about police brutality. And he was classed as a domestic terrorist by the US government for speaking out against police brutality on Facebook. He was labelled a domestic terrorist. Now, I don't know what majority of people would class as a terrorist, but I'm pretty sure that would not be it. That is probably the opposite to what I would class as a terrorist. But you know, who am I? So, yeah, interesting point. Anyway, I hope you all got something out of that. And if there's any questions, please shoot them in and let me answer them. If people are messaging me, I do get a fair few messages and I get a lot of information sent to me. So if I don't respond, it's not because I don't like what you're sending me, or it's not because what you're sending me is not valid or important. It's because I simply haven't read it or had the time to read it or look into it. And I just basically have to pick, you know, time is the only thing that I don't have an abundance of. You know, we're all only here for a short time, so we need to make the most of what we've got. And yeah, I wish I had more time. For more people, we need to. I'd like to get a little group happening, you know, and if we can bring everyone together and work together, I think we can achieve a lot more than, you know, just the single me and single you. And you know, there's people all over the world, all over the country doing amazing work, you know, amazing work. People that are a lot more intelligent than me, people that are a lot more experienced in law, in tax, in, you know, in all the things I talk about. There's people all over the world that are much more experienced than me, that are putting the information out there. And, you know, and thank you to those people. Thank you all. Thank you. You know, from the bottom of my heart, you're all angels, and keep sharing. And yeah, let's get together and organise some meetups and you know, exercise our right to peaceful congregation. And I don't think that's the right word, but you get the drift. It's in the Bible. It's in the Bible. I was going to call it the Law Dictionary, which is pretty much the Bible anyway. Yeah. Anyone have any questions? No. Please share. Please share. Please share. Please share. Yeah. This is the only forum that we have. So please share the information, and yeah, thanks for watching. I always see those smiley faces, you know, where the person's like laughing and their mouth's open and their eyes are squinting. I always see them in my comments and that, and I don't know if they're like someone laughing at what I'm saying and taking the piss, or someone's just really happy and ecstatic. But I always like have this little thing inside me, and I'm like, oh, I wonder if they're laughing at what I'm saying. But then, you know, whatever. People have laughed at what I've said my whole life, and told me that I can't do things, and that you know, I won't be able to do these grand ideas that I've always had throughout my life. I've always wanted to do, you know, big things and things that are a little bit different, you know. People always laughed at me and told me I couldn't do them. And for me, anytime that happened, you know, I made sure that happened. I made sure that I did what they laughed at me for, and I made sure that I completed it, and I did it well, and I did it to the best of my ability. And most of the time, you know, I was very good at what I put my mind to. So thank you to all those people who laughed at me and told me I couldn't do things because, you know, without you, maybe I wouldn't have done them. So thank you to those people as well. And thank you. Yeah, thanks to everyone. Thanks again for watching. I've got the planet Earth there behind me, my crystal. What an amazing crystal that is, ocean jasper. And then I've got my little Alicia my ET skull there, and she's pretty amazing. But yeah, that's it for me. Thanks for watching, and have a great evening. And I'm sure you'll be hearing from me again soon. You know, seems to be more and more, and I have a lot more to speak about. It's just a matter again of getting time and not wearing out everyone's ears. I don't want to wear everybody out. I don't want to wear out their minds. I don't want to wear out their ears. I don't want people to get sick of me. But you know, if that happens, then it happens. I suppose it happens anyway. But yeah, that's it. Ardy there with you. Thanks, Ardy. You've proved them wrong. I hope I've done something. I hope I'm just bringing awareness to some people. I hope that you know, yeah. All right. Peace and love, and thanks for your time again. Good night.